Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. On today's episode of How I Met Your Mother. But in all seriousness, this is the kind of story that makes reading these worth it, especially because they're using their knowledge of these stories to assess the situation, and this one was for sure a prime example of how that form of mutual understanding ends up building relationships. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. The Karen That Wasn't. Let me preface this by saying this is not my story, it's my friend's, but I was with him at the time this happened. We were at the shopping center buying stuff for our annual camping, fishing, summer trip a couple years ago before the world went mad. As both of us were already almost done with the needed goodies and had just needed to buy some extra cans, one folding camping chair, and possibly a thermos. I can't recall the exact things to save my life, and it doesn't really matter. We were in our off-road outfits, leather boots, camo, clothes, and backpacks. An older gentleman was in the same aisle as us. His cart was left a little away from him as he didn't want to push it all the way. He was using a walking cane. He then approached us and asked us where the croissants were. We'd already passed the food area, and we also knew that in order for him to get there, he'd have to limp over to his cart and then all the way back to us and to the other aisle. My friend asked him if that was his cart. The gentleman nodded and pointed at it. My friend said, "Stay here, I'll get it for you," and quickly went and got it. The old man said, "Thanks," and went on with his shopping. Enter the woman. As my friend and I returned to our browsing, we saw what I can easily describe as the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my life. Just a tad younger than us, long, straight blonde hair, the bluest and whitest eyes that ever existed on a human, tall, slim, extremely well-dressed, classy black heels, the kind of woman you'd think only exists after a few weeks of extensive Photoshop effort. Apparently, she had seen my friend run to get the gentleman's cart because she threw the bluest glance towards him, raised her hand and, I kid you not, snapped her fingers and pointed towards her own cart. We looked at each other and my friend actually looked at himself, his camo clothes and leather boots, and looked back at me with a "dude, what?" look on his face, while I was mouthing a silent "wow" back at him. We did nothing. She then took a longer look at us, raised a perfectly done eyebrow, and said with a voice like a steel fist in a velvet glove, "Well?" My friend, always the witty one, said, "I actually am well, thanks." "Aren't you going to get my cart to the register?" she asked, her eyes never leaving his face, obviously making him uncomfortable. "Why?" he said, unsure of how to react. "Isn't that your job?" Years of reading stories on this sub and 500 plus videos on Dark Fluff's YouTube channel came crashing in. She thought we worked there. We often exchanged links and watched and read stories together, so we knew. We also knew that the only way to shut down a situation like this is to out-Karen the Karen. From this point on, I was just an observer. He: "I'm sorry, miss, I don't work here." She: "What do you mean?" He: "I don't work here." She: "But He: "I don't work here." And he clapped his hands to emphasize don't. She: He: "I don't work here," with claps on every word. She puffed, turned around on her heels, and started walking away so fast it looked like those 1,000 sped-up jump scare gifs. He got like 50 feet away, then she stopped and walked back to us. I thought to myself, holy hairy jumping crap balls, here we go again. She said to him in a stern voice that demanded attention, "Listen." I braced for impact. She took a breath and said, "I just want to apologize." My brain gears screamed, begging for some WD-40, like, Karen apologizes? What? I can see my friend is as baffled as a giraffe at a typewriter. He: "There's no need." She: "I'm sorry." He: "Really, miss, it's not." She: "I am sorry." But, I am sorry, with claps on every word. I couldn't take it anymore. I burst out laughing. I haven't laughed like that since I can't remember. I fell to my knees, I got tears in my eyes, boogers coming out, the whole shebang. It was the funniest thing ever. Seeing my friend's mouth open and close several times only made it even harder. I then saw that she could hardly contain her own laughter. Finally, the absurdity of the situation hit my friend as well, and he roared his way down to the floor next to me, laughing his butt off. Turned out she wasn't a Karen at all. She just honestly thought we worked in the outdoor aisle in our outdoor clothes and was trying to apologize after the first time he told her that that wasn't the case, but he didn't let her finish a sentence in his effort to out-Karen the Karen. What happened after that, you ask? They're expecting their second child this autumn. His response has now changed. If she says, "Aren't you going to get my cart to the register?" his response is now, "Yes, dear." And our second story. Show them all your documents. They will see you deserve no better. Okay, I'll show you all my documents. Hi, this is my first post in here about a thing which happened half a decade ago, but recent experience made me remember it vividly. I hope you enjoy my story. To give context, I live in Europe in a non-Anglophone country. I've always been a language nerd, and since my parents' divorce, English and everything in it, music, movies, internet, was my escape, so I was fluent before most of my classmates and got my CPE, Certificate of Proficiency in English, the highest certificate from the Cambridge Council, at 18. In my country, high schools are basically undergrad college and are finished between the ages of 19 and 20, and a problem which almost all public schools have is terrible language teachers, most of them being former Russian teachers with minimal English or any other language education. Also, my country is small and nobody could reasonably expect to use our language abroad. We put a huge emphasis on language studies at all levels of education, and it's often the thing which schools boast about to become more prestigious. So enough context. From early on, my last high school English teacher and I kicked it off to a bad start. The first test she gave us came back all red because of words which are not in the textbook. The terrible teacher, TT for short, would do this to me for the full final 2 years. She would take my essays and tests and cross out any word, phrase, or structure which was not in the textbook we were using. I maintain that I will not go as far as to learn the textbook vocabulary by heart, just to remember which synonyms I was allowed to use, just because of TT's antics. I've managed to keep an A for 3 terms because there was nothing she could mark down on my grammar. The final term, however, TT learned that I wished to go to university to do Anglophone studies, a specialization her daughter had failed to be accepted for. She told me that as an explanation why I cannot ever hope to be accepted at the start of that term, and which, among a dozen other things, required good or even perfect marks from high school language lessons and accepted only 5% of applicants. TT was dead set to make me fail. She started giving me the stupidest assignments and extra tests for misbehaving in class, being finished early and silently staring at a wall, which required me to mark the exact position of Disneyland on this A4 blind map of USA. Exact quote I still remember after all those years. And more of the same crap. You could tell she was so satisfied by me failing these tests, she would have a grin on her face each time handing out the results. By this time, I've been representing the school and language Olympics for both English and Spanish. She had no idea because it was organized by another language teacher, and even though the principal made it into a big deal, TT was plainly uninterested. I have placed 3rd in the Capital City District in Spanish and 6th nationwide in English. Not listing this to brag. Okay, maybe a bit, but to use it later. By the end of the term, she got my mark down to a C-. Mind you, all the grammar was still A's, but her blind maps of tourist attractions had taken their toll. I went to her to reason with her, but her reaction was, if you think a different teacher would propose a different mark, take all your documents and go to one of my colleagues. But I believe it's clear to anyone that you do not deserve any better. So I did. I took all my documents, the bloody blind maps, the grammar tests, my by then a year-old PCE certificate, and my 6th place diploma. I went to the teacher who organized the competitions and explained my situation. She was furious. She took this to the principal, and even though I was waiting outside, I could hear him yell at TT, "You were trying to fail the student who was representing us at the national level of competitions?" It also turned out that with the CPE I had, by that time, a higher level of English education than TT had, I got my A. I got to the uni and I love it there. I also started my own tiny language school where, among, of course, teaching the language to whoever is interested, I help kids whose language teachers are incompetent and/or power-hungry morons. The impulse for me to write this was walking by the high school last week and meeting TT. She acted like we've always been best buddies. A couple of my students are her students as well, so she knows about me. She hugged me in front of the high school kids present and exclaimed that I got where I was thanks to working hard in her lessons. I'm still pissed I didn't get the courage to tell her off there and then. Glad you had another teacher to back you up. It's sad to think how easily this could have ruined someone's academic career. And our last story. I'm suing Bexar Towing. This happened to me last year in June. I parked along the street of Bentley's on Broadway. I came out around 1 a.m. My car was gone. Came back the next day around 11 a.m. Couldn't find my car. I called every tow company with the sign posted on the block. I filed a police report, my car being stolen. San Antonio Police Department didn't have any leads for me. I checked the national database tow companies use when they do a tow. My car wasn't listed in the legal required time and was presumed stolen. I get a letter in the mail from Bexar Towing 10 days later stating they had my car. I have to pay for tow fees and storage, which was $450. I never once found their tow sign at Bentley's on Broadway, and I was informed they towed my car at the request of SAPD. SAPD never wrote me a ticket and said they never did that. I sued them in court. The judge ruled in my favor after I displayed pictures of the area, their lack of signage. They didn't put my VIN in the tow database. The freaking owner really tried to blame me that I didn't try to come get my car. I argued I can't find what doesn't exist, and she agreed. I won $450 that they mailed to me. They're effing scammers to the highest order. Kudos for taking them to court and standing your ground. It's outrageous that they tried to shift the blame onto you when it was clearly their lack of signage and proper procedures causing the mess. Victory is sweet, especially when it's in the form of $450 that rightfully belongs in your pocket. Take that, Bexar Towing. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.